Hello, today we're going to see how we can create diagrams using simple textual description. This can be done using PlantUml and enables us to create sequence diagrams, use case diagrams, or any other kind of diagrams which you can find on their official website here. Today we're going to create a sequence diagram with a very simple use case, and that is the retrieval of a user from the database. In order to facilitate the creation, I have installed a plugin for IDEA, that is the PlantUml plugin, and this enables us to see in real time the modifications that we have made to the diagram. An alternative is to use their generator. You can find it also here. The disadvantage here is that you have to submit actually every modification only to see the results here, and this will affect greatly your productivity, so I greatly recommend you to use some kind of an editor which supports real-time generation of the diagram. In order to start the diagram, we'll have to include the start UML and the end UML instructions, and also for simplicity case and use, we're going to add the auto number instruction. This will number all the steps that will be made in the sequence diagram, so we won't have to do this. We have to begin by describing the actors that are taking part in this sequence diagram, and the actors which we will use here is the client. So this is the actual user that, for example, enters a site and interacts with the front-end side. The front-end participant, the back-end participant, and the database that will be actually a database. So the participant will be a client, but if we want to be more specific, we can add it as an actor. As you can see, the modality in which the actor is shown visually is very different from the participant. So usually we will use actors for human interactions and participants for maybe data layers or something. So we'll have the front-end participant, the back-end participant, and also a participant, but it is of type database, which is the DB. As you can see, we have defined the participants. All of them have been added by themselves. The visual diagram has been added, and we weren't forced to draw anything or import any kind of objects. In order to begin our sequence diagram, we'll have to think that the client will make a request for the front-end side, and he will request the data, the user data. Later on, the front-end side will make a request to the back-end side, and maybe we can formalize this as a get for users, the user ID as a path parameter, and the data. The backend side, of course, will have to make a request to the database, and this request we can write, as you can see, as free text. So we're actually going to write the select here. As you can see, this is totally an opinionated select, so there isn't actually a database on which we connect here. This hasn't got the role of code. It is only something descriptive for the scope of the diagram. The database will return an answer. We can write these answers into formats. Either the sender, as here, will send something to the receiver. In our case, the database will send an answer to the backend side, or we can say that the backend side will receive an answer from the database. These two are equivalent. As you can see, the results are similar here. So just for comparison, I will let it here that the database will send an answer to the backend side. We can observe here that the steps 4 and 5 are actually identical. So these two instructions are actually the same, but My preference is to use the first form, that is, the backend side will receive an answer from the database. In order to better describe the answer, we can use notes. Notes are very useful because they also offer free text input, but on the plus side, they offer a clear delimitation between the rest of the diagram. So we are going to write a note on the right side of the backend. And here we can describe the user object that we have received from the database. And maybe the user object is described by the ID, the name, and the occupation. As you can see, this is an actual note and it's very intuitive to use. Now we can say that the backend side will have to process this answer and return it in a proper manner to the front-end side, and that is as a JSON object. So we're going to write here that the backend side will send something to the backend side, but as you can see, the return arrow here is maybe we can use it as a sign of self-processing or of a processing function. And we can write here that the backend side processes the database object and transforms it to JSON. For this, we can also use a node, also on the right of the backend side. And here we can actually write the object that will be returned to the front-end side. Alright, the next step will be that the backend side will send the answer to the front-end side, or the equivalent, the front-end side will receive an answer from the backend side with the answer with the status 200 OK, and with the object described in this note, which shouldn't be on the right of the backend side. We can put it on the right on the front-end side in order to better see what's happening here. So the next step, the front-end side will send an answer to the client, or the client will receive an answer from the front-end side containing its user details in a widget, for example. So as you can see, we have finished this very simple diagram. We can see all the layers, all the actors. It wasn't very hard to create. There are some syntax limitations, but in my opinion, they are very, very useful and very easily to get a hang of. In order to generate the diagram, we can save this diagram, but as I said, you are not limited to use the PlantUml plugin. You could also use their official generator, which you can find here. And with this generator, you can generate the diagram in the high quality format and export it as SVG and use it in all your processes.